That's carried.
Thank you.
Okay. Now then, similarly, item 17, the draft submission on reducing waste, the more effective landfill levy. Have we got staff here for that one? Maybe we'll come to that this afternoon. What we might try and do quickly is item 20, if we can, Civic Financial Services Statement of Intent. The one concern I had with this when I saw it is reflected in the resolution. Have we got staff for this one? Carol, you'll speak to this if we need somebody to.
But I can speak to it, yeah.
Okay, all right. Is there, it might be worth you commenting on exactly the issue that I've just alluded to. Linda, hi. Yeah. So we're just on item 20, Civic Financial Services Statement of Intent. So any introductory comments on this report before we take any questions?
Civic has a history of being involved in ensuring local government for various risks over time. It is pretty much wound out of that business and is now, its core business is administering superannuation funds for local government employees. The key issue in their SOI is that they're proposing to cut the fees that are charged to members instead of paying dividend to shareholders. The board has decided to do that without reference back to the council. It did consult some councils informally, but not us. We're the second largest shareholder at 12.7%. In principle, what they're saying is that they're transferring the return that shareholders would get in recognition of the risk they take as investors, and they're transferring that to cut the fees to members. And we're raising that as an issue that you may or may not want us to pursue with them at the AGM.
All right, thank you very much. It's reflected in the resolutions, and that's obviously the staff recommendation. By approving that resolution today, obviously we would endorse the approach that you're taking. We'll come to that when we come to debate, but I've got a couple of questions first, if I can. The AGM, that's the appropriate opportunity to raise this in discussion and debate with the directors?
We think it is, from the perspective that they have acted without formal consultation, and so our only other option would be to approach the board separately on this. But by doing it at the AGM, we have all the other shareholders there.
Do we know that other shareholders share our view?
No, we don't.
But we could easily find that out.
We could.
And who would be attending the AGM on behalf of Christchurch City Council?
It's usually, or often, Carol, yes, or Diane.
Yep. Okay. And the other question that often comes up when we consider this paper or its equivalent is how, if we wanted to, we could get out of this. And the answer we always get is that it would require selling the shareholding and that there would not realistically be a buyer for that shareholding. Is that still the case?
That is more than likely. Yeah, more than likely the case. The other question around Civic is, why are they involved in administering a superannuation scheme? The market has numerous providers. If they didn't do that, what then would their business be? Well, it would be largely run off of their old insurance schemes. That might be the other way to go about it. It's a big...
So does that mean that we need further discussion around what position we might take on a number of matters at the AGM? And I mean, that isn't something that we necessarily would discuss on the back of this paper in this meeting, but is there a need for some direction, some thought and direction to be provided to the position that we take at the AGM around the matter that's raised here, but quite possibly a number of other matters pertaining to the governance and future of this organisation as well?
Yes.
Can we think about how we set that up?
Yeah,
That would be
so
good.
similar to last year when you brought out the LGFA in to talk about their position, about what they do going forward. That's an opportunity to do the same thing for these. Although the LGFA is not a true CCO, basically that's the sort of thing that we're involved in. And so the Civic Financial Services have a specific exemption in the Local Government Act for not being a CCO because they were an insurance company. Now, that is slowly diminishing, so therefore they become more and more accountable as being just a administrator of superannuation funds.
All right. Can I take a discussion offline about how we might deal with some of these issues at the AGM and what positions we might take and what decision-making around that might look like once we've got some specific thoughts and recommendations as to how we might deal with it?
Yes.
Thank you. All right. Questions? Yanni?
Thanks. So, do we know when the AGM is?
It's usually around June.
Right, and obviously we won't have received papers for it. Do we know who the current trustees are and whether there's any new directors coming on board?
The directors have been in place for quite a while. We do know who they are. I can tell you this, Basil Morrison, what's the guy's name who used to be here? Tony Marriott. Tony Marriott.
We can easily circulate this information rather than you needing to recount it from memory. We can easily find it out. And it's
I just wonder
anyway.
whether we should be doing some work around if there's new directors' appointments, then maybe we want to, given how we've been treated, maybe think about some new directors that we put
Last year
forward
when
as
we
support.
put the Civic papers up, we said what they do is that they send us the information about the AGM and say if you've got any nominations for the directors' spots, can you let us know? But that we don't get enough time to be able to do that work and come to you.
Now.
So last year we said we'd do it for next year, so we're doing that now.
Fantastic. That's really cool.
All right, so that could well be one of the, I think there's a wider discussion we need to have before we get anywhere near the AGM, and we might want to take a proactive approach.
And we might want to
let's
raise
take that offline.
Through the zone as well, through the LGNZ zones.
Yep. All right, any further questions? Okay, so I'm happy to move this. Do I have a seconder? Pauline? Any debate? I'm very comfortable with the position you're taking. I think it's entirely appropriate. And I think there's probably a wider discussion that we should have, and we need to have a think about what decision-making looks like around that and who the appropriate representative would be to deliver whatever message we decide to the AGM, where we might in fact decide to take quite a different approach. But let's not preempt that, but let's enable a discussion to take place that allows us to actively decide what we're going to do, rather than just drifting along with this, given the information that you've provided. So I'll put the motion. All those in favour say aye. Against? That's carried.